Good morning. Some neighbours don't get along. But the French and the English, they made it an art form. They didn't just argue over hedges and parking spots. They fought over religion, royal titles, whose flag should flap over entire continents. And they didn't stop at name-calling. They brought swords, fleets, treaties, the works, very dramatic declarations of eternal rivalry. What makes it all the more ridiculous is that for a surprisingly long time, they were actually ruled by the same king. From 1066 to 1204, the kings of England were also dukes of Normandy. That meant that the rulers of England were technically vassals of the French crown, while also being monarchs in their own right. It was like a royal house share that went sour. John Gillingham puts it in his book, the Angevin Empire. He says, the kings of England held their crown by the grace of God, and their French lands by the grace of the French king. And the second part irritated them immensely. By the 12th century, the English crown actually held more French territory than the French crown did. So naturally, the fights began. And it just didn't stop. The real drama began when the fights spilled across the ocean. If you've ever seen two people argue in a kitchen and then say, let's take this outside, then you'll recognize the vibe. Except for France and England, outside didn't mean the garden. It meant Canada. In the early 1500s, the French, led by Jacques Cartier, arrived on the east coast of what we now call Canada. Cartier planted a cross at Gaspé in 1534, claimed it for King Francis I, and probably annoyed a great number of Miquelon and Innu people who have already been living there for generations. But anyway, a few decades later, the British showed up too, because of course they did. Both powers were interested in three things: cod, fur, and strategic coastline. The Grand Banks just off Newfoundland were full of cod, and salt cod at the time was the essential ingredient of European survival. It lasted, it traveled, it fed armies and navies, it made money, and so both countries set up shop. The French founded Port Royal in 1605 in what they called Acadia, and the British settled parts of Newfoundland and later Nova Scotia. And from there, the relationship unraveled. The colonial period on Canada's east coast reads like a petty game of Risk. The same towns were conquered, renamed, retaken, renamed again, renamed. Take Port Royal. It was French in 1605. It was burned by the British in 1613. It was then rebuilt by the French, captured again in 1710, renamed Annapolis Royal. It was just like two siblings fighting over the same toy, but with muskets and ships. The Acadians, these are French-speaking settlers in the region, became a cultural flashpoint. By the 1750s, the British had had enough of the French presence, and in a move that still echoes today, they began the Great Expulsion between 1755 and 1764. They deported over 11,000 Acadians from their homes, many of which fled to Louisiana, where they would later become known as Cajuns. They took their language, their cooking, their tradition, their stubborn spirits with them. Now, after that 7 Years' War from 1756 to 1763, France lost most of its North American possessions. But it refused to let go entirely. In the Treaty of Paris, 1763, France gave up Canada, but they insisted on keeping a tiny speck of land just off the coast of Newfoundland, St Pierre and Miquelon. It's barely visible on most maps. It's foggy, it's windswept, it's smaller than Staten Island, but it's French. Ooh la la. To this day, it remains a French territorial collectivity with French laws, French baguettes, French euros, a French post office. Why? Partly pride, partly stubbornness, maybe partly business foresight, because it also became a hotbed of smuggling activity during the era of Prohibition in the States. Really, during the 1920s and early 30s, St Pierre made a booming hub as a black market trading hub. It was a place where French wines, champagnes, spirits were all funneled into America's dry and thirsty cities. At one point, every warehouse in St Pierre was crammed with bottles. So, to be fair, the French didn't just take the fight outside. They did bring a bit of ooh-la-la and party with it. But anyway, after all those years of fighting over fortresses, over cod, over what religion native citizens should be converted to, something changed. Because here's the funny thing about family feuds. Maybe you know this from personal experience. Eventually, people run out of cannonballs. They stop throwing things. Maybe they even forget how the fight ever started. Even everyone grows a little bit older. Everyone somehow ends up back around the dinner table. And that's what happened here. All that history of squabbling, the kings, the cod wars, the expulsions, the invasions, it didn't go away per se. It just settled. And what's left, especially in Canada's Maritimes and those stubborn little French islands, is a kind of accidental family reunion. Now, I don't know what your family dinners are like, but in this part of the world, if you listen closely to what's on the table, you start to hear the whole history again, just in edible form. There's French elegance, there's British stubbornness, there's Acadian invention, there's Canadian mischief, all sitting slightly awkwardly next to each other, like cousins who haven't spoken since the last wedding. But they are eating together, and that's what matters. So let's snoop in at a little family potluck to get an idea of the types of food that's awaiting us in our next couple of ports of call. Now, you know how potlucks go. Someone shows up early, someone shows up drunk, someone brings a salad that no one touches. Well, let's see what's on the table this time. Let's start with Uncle Jacques. Uncle Jacques is French-Canadian. He's still bitter about the 1995 Quebec independence referendum. He doesn't trust Ottawa a jot, and he refuses to say cheese curds in English. He arrives dramatically late, snow on his shoulders. He's cradling a roasting pan like it's a family heirloom. And inside, a glistening, glorious, gravy-drenched heap of chips, squeaky cheese curds, and gravy. C'est la résistance, he says. Plants that tray down like he's liberating Paris. This is the resistance. This is poutine. But Uncle Jacques isn't joking, because for him, poutine isn't just a snack. It's a symbol of French-Canadian identity. It was created during a period when Quebec was having a bit of an identity crisis. It's what's now been dubbed the Quiet Revolution of the 1960s. Back then, Quebec was still heavily controlled by the Catholic Church. Schools, hospitals, even power companies were run by religious authorities. But secularization across English-speaking Canada finally made its way into the French-speaking province. Education was secularized, Hydro-Quebec was nationalized, and Quebec's francophone identity took center stage in the resistance. The Quebecois were used to church authority, but being told what to do by the English, that's a step too far. And out of that era came poutine. Born in Quebec's rural snack bars sometime around the late 50s, early 60s. Fries, cheese curds, and hot gravy all piled together onto a paper tray. Great Granny Therese. She doesn't say too much. She just nods when she enters. She's been to way too many storms to waste energy on small talk. And she makes her offering to the family dinner table. Her offering is a little grey. It's a bit lumpy. It's somewhere between a lasagna and a mud brick. But no one dares criticize the appearance, of course, because this is râpé pie. It's short for patate râpée, grated potatoes, and it is a true staple of Acadian cooking, especially in parts of Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. You grate raw potatoes, you squeeze out all of the liquid, then you rehydrate the wrung-out potato shreds with hot broth, and then you bake it. Râpé pie was created by Acadians. These were the French-speaking settlers who were forcibly deported by the British during the Great Expulsion in the mid-18th century. Remember, that was more than 11,000 people taken from their homes here in Nova Scotia. Then they were scattered across the American colonies, some back into France, some across the Caribbean. But eventually, some came back. And when they did, they brought with them a new kind of resourcefulness. And that especially came through in the kitchen. Because potatoes weren't originally grown in Nova Scotia. But they were hardy, they were filling, and they were cheap. Râpé pie isn't something you put on a tasting menu, but to Acadians, it's sacred. Cousin William, a true maritime man. Big boots, heavy footsteps, a bright yellow coat that smells like the wharf. He, slightly gruffly, he will plonk down these two battered enamel pans onto the counter, wipes his hands on a clean tea towel. I mean, it was clean. Fish and brews and hot scruncheons. Get it while it's hot. That's what he says. No one really knows what brews is, but no one dares ask either. Fish and brews is a traditional Newfoundland dish made with salted cod, soaked to rehydrate it, hard tack, which is like a rock-hard sailor's biscuit. You boil them to soften them up, you mix them together, and then you top them with scruncheons, which is a crispy bit of salted pork fat. If you can't tell, William's from the English side of the family. Fish and brews is not delicate. It's not pretty. Aunt Sandrine is horrified. We're going to get back to her in a bit. She can't cope with this sort of grub. She calls it maritime prison food. But it's true when William says that it is cod that this place was built on. Certainly when it comes to French and British interests. But Sandrine's having none of that. She glides in wearing a scarf no one can get away with. Her perfume arrives 4 seconds before she does. And she surveys the table with that cool detachment of a food critic at a 24/7 all-you-can-eat buffet. She doesn't speak right away. She just sets things down. A wooden board with 2 perfectly chilled slabs of foie gras. A fresh baguette, not sliced. Sliced bread is barbaric. A pot of onion confit. And naturally, a bottle of Bordeaux, uncorked with surgical precision. If you haven't already guessed, Sandrine doesn't live in Canada. She has flown over from St Pierre et Miquelon. That strange little outpost of French pride clinging to the edge of Newfoundland like it refuses to admit that the empire ended. Because in France, it didn't end. It's a territorial collectivity of France. It's not a colony. It's not a province. It is just French. Entirely French. They speak French. They vote in French elections. They spend French euros. They import their charcuterie on French planes. Everything is French. Yes, some of her delicacies may be more organ failure than food. But everybody is forced to agree that her wine is excellent. This region is so full of culinary contradictions. Let's add in 3 more dishes, 2.5, and then we'll open the portal. Liam brought the Halifax donair. Yeah, he arrived late, obviously, wearing his hoodie, carrying a crumpled paper bag like it's sacred. Best donair in Halifax. No one asked, no one's arguing. Inside, spiced meat, sticky sweet garlic sauce, onions, tomatoes, and a pitta that's barely holding itself together. It smells dangerous. The kind of food that feels like both a reward and a dare. The Halifax doner was born in the 1970s when Greek immigrants adapted their doner kebab to suit Canadian tastes. Sweet sauce instead of tzatziki, mystery meat instead of lamb. And it became a late night legend. But this next one is what we've all been waiting for. Because Emma always brings the dessert. She's wearing her glittery headband, holding this tray with so much pride, because she's made beaver tails. Beaver tails are fried dough pastries, stretched flat, then topped with cinnamon, sugar, chocolate spread, bananas, marshmallows, basically whatever is in reach. It's a fairground classic. It is proudly Canadian, proudly excessive, and hers are covered in sprinkles. There's actually a chain called Beaver Tails. You're going to see this when we get to Canada, and it is well worth a visit. But you might want to share one. And they've come up with something hilarious and disgusting in equal measure. And it's the last dish to arrive at our potluck, carried by Emma's younger brother, Tyler, because Tyler likes poutine and loves beaver tails. So what better than combining the two, eh? Fried dough base, cheese curds, gravy. I think I spy a little chocolate drizzle in there too. He's doing a food studies diploma. Online, unaccredited, possibly made up. Everyone is horrified, but everyone tries it. And everyone wants more. It's weird, chaotic, totally unnecessary, and somehow perfectly Canadian. A dish that only makes sense when you stop trying to make it make sense. And it's called a poo tail. It's a real dish. On that, let's open our portal and collect our two upcoming ports of call, St Pierre and Halifax. Alrighty, just off the coast of Newfoundland, but unmistakably French, St Pierre is a tiny overseas territory that still belongs to France. It's part of the last remaining piece of the old French colonial empire in North America. And the locals here, as I mentioned, they use euros, they vote in the elections in France, they speak French as their first language. They are a part of France. And the islands have a long history of fishing, smuggling, stubborn independence, and it's shaped by these foggy harbors, the Atlantic winds that just blow right across. St Pierre packs a punch above its weight culturally, certainly with the food, this strong French identity, bakeries, and a lifestyle that feels a little bit more Paris than provincial. And this is the best photo I could find of where we're going to be docked, because usually we tender into St Pierre. But we're going to be docked this time. Yeah, makes you want a tender ride. We're going to be docked a bit out of town, and where I've put the arrows, the ship's going to be running all along there. So we're going to take up that whole length. But I haven't got a picture of the ship in the dock, so that's where we're going to be. And there are going to be shuttle buses that are going to run us then to the town. Melanie is giddy with excitement. She's missed all the shuttle buses. It was actually her that said, I am not tendering to the center of this town. No, I want to offer a shuttle bus. You should have seen the temper tantrum. Here it is on a map. So we're right up there at the top. It's just one road in, but it's 2.1 kilometers, so worth taking the bus in. It's going to work out at about a 10-minute drive. And we're going to drop you off right at the waterfront. There's a nice park, a little square called General de Gaulle. Place de General de Gaulle and a grassy square right there on the waterfront. By the way, I felt it was interesting, fun with flags. Even though St Pierre and Miquelon is part of France, they do still have their own flag, same as French Guiana, and so that's why I thought I'd share that flag with you. And I think they've got rather a nice flag, except for if you are a school child having to draw your flag, in which case that looks like an absolute nightmare. Anyway, just a few highlights to call on here. Relatively small town centre. Let's start with the Musée Héritage. It's a small but really interesting museum. It offers a glimpse into everyday life on the islands over the past century. It's housed in a former school. It displays rooms recreated to reflect local homes, classrooms, medical practices from the early 1900s. And you find everything from antique furniture to fishing tools, providing insight into how people here lived, worked, adapted to their isolated environment. It's a really great stop for anybody who's interested in social history and local traditions. And by the way, it talks more than just St Pierre. St Pierre is actually a relatively small island at the base of St Pierre et Miquelon. The isthmus runs up across and then into Miquelon, which is much, much longer than St Pierre. The Cathédrale de St Pierre is one of the island's most recognizable landmarks. It's located right in the heart of the town. It was rebuilt, you can probably get this sense, you can rebuilt in the early 20th century after a great fire in 1902. The cathedral features this striking Basque-style architecture, reflecting the heritage of many of the island's families. Inside, when you go in, you're going to find beautiful stained glass windows, some donated by Charles de Gaulle himself, and maritime-themed details that really speak to the community's deep connection with the sea. It's free to visit, it's fully accessible, it's just a short walk from where that bus is going to drop us off. A quiet, contemplative space that blends this French identity with local island character. Feel like a bit of a walk, Pointe au Canon Lighthouse is a small but iconic red and white lighthouse that stands watch over the harbour of St Pierre. It was originally built in the 19th century, rebuilt after that 1902 fire. That fire really got around. Sits beside the cannons that once protected the town, so that's how it gets its name. It's not open to climate, but it's a really popular photo stop, and it's a pretty easy walk out from the port. So off the bus, and you take a turn to the right if you're facing inland, and just follow the road round, follow the path. Lovely views of the bay and the nearby Ile de Morin. It's especially nice, actually, in foggy weather. If you get foggy weather, the lighthouse is very bold against this sort of grey Atlantic mist, and it's a really lovely local spot for a good stroll. And since I mentioned Ile aux Marins, or Sailor's Island, this is a small, uninhabited island. It looks like there are houses there. It's no longer inhabited. It's just a short ferry ride from St Pierre. It was once home to a thriving fishing community. It's now a living museum of island history, preserved buildings like the Notre Dame de Morin, that's the church, old homes, the museum there, explores the island's maritime heritage. Walking around this island feels like stepping into the past. There are no cars, there are no crowds, just the sound of seabirds and stories in the wind. Ferries run pretty regularly in the summer. It's difficult to know whether they're now considering this summer or not. We are right at the whiskers edge of summer here. If you go over there, wear sturdy shoes and bring a camera, because it's hauntingly beautiful. And if you love a good walk, then you do have more options. There are signed trails around St Pierre as well, and so you could head out of the town and just walk on a trail. Here are those four on a map, one obviously slightly off the map, and the shuttle bus stop. The port, as I mentioned before, is right up north of the town centre, so it is off this zoomed-in map. Let's move into Halifax. Halifax is the capital of Nova Scotia. It's one of Canada's oldest port cities. It's got this long history tied to the sea. Founded by the British in 1749 as a military outpost, it quickly became a strategic harbour in the North Atlantic, a legacy of which is still visible in the forts, the dockyards, the naval heritage. Today, Halifax blends its colonial past with the modern, laid-back maritime culture. It's a university town. It's a cultural hub. It's a working port, all rolled into one. It has got strong Scottish roots. It's got salty air. It's got a fiercely local spirit. And Halifax feels both historic and very, very Canadian. We're likely to be using an air bridge gangway here. And so chances are we'll be going off maybe deck 1, deck 2, onto this bridge, which then immediately brings you down the ramp to the dock side, because it's quite a narrow area. Then from there, you're going to go inside that building. Inside the building, you find a lot of facilities. There's shops, more like a market-style shops. There's tourist information there. Oftentimes, they don't just give you a map. They give you one of those little pins of the Canadian flag. Very nice, huh? Yeah. What else do they have in there? They have some private shore excursions. They have the hop-on, hop-off bus, not inside the terminal, but you can buy your ticket inside the terminal and then head out to meet the bus on the other side. They've got the pink bus, which is a hop-on, hop-off bus, and it's pink. They have Wi-Fi in the terminal as well. Taxis wait outside. There are toilets in there. It's a very well set up cruise terminal. Let's get into our highlights. Let's give you the map first. This is where the terminal is, Pier 22. You get nice views from the ship of this island, St George's. And then you're looking at about a 15-minute walk or so to get to the start of town, and probably 30 minutes to get to the further reaches of the city centre. All right, let's go through our highlights. I've pulled out 8 highlights for you here in Halifax. And we're going to start very close to the ship. It's located right beside the cruise terminal. The Canadian Museum of Immigration at Pier 21 tells the stories of more than 1 million immigrants who passed through Halifax between 1928 and 1971. This is known as Canada's version of Ellis Island. And this National Museum offers powerful personal exhibits on migration, identity, and belonging. And you can explore reconstructed ship cabins, listen to first-hand accounts, even trace your own ancestry if your family arrived in Canada by ship. It's a reminder that almost every Canadian has a story that started somewhere else. Entry is about $16.25, and that's in Canadian dollars, and it is fully wheelchair accessible. This museum's great, the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic, located along the Halifax waterfront, offers a fascinating look into Nova Scotia's deep relationship with the sea. It features exhibits on shipwrecks, naval history, the city's key role in the aftermath of the Titanic disaster. One of the most moving sections covers the 1917 Halifax explosion, the largest non-nuclear explosion in history. Full-size vessels to explore, displays ranging from pirates to ocean liners. I love this museum. It captures the drama and the danger of the Atlantic seafarers' lives. It's $9.55 Canadian dollars to get in. It's fully accessible, and it's roughly a half an hour walk from the cruise terminal. And a little thing, if you want to give crew members a little tip, if crew members show their crew card, this museum will let them in for free, which is very nice of them. So you can tell your favorite team members, you can make this recommendation. Now, if the exhibition on the Titanic in that museum is the part that's of most interest to you, you may also want to visit Fairview Lawn Cemetery. This is the final resting place of about 100 victims of the Titanic disaster. Halifax played a crucial role in the recovery operation. And this quiet hillside cemetery contains one of the largest Titanic burial sites in the world. Simple granite markers identify most of the graves. Some remain unnamed. One of the most visited belongs to a child that was once known as the Unknown Child. The cemetery is free to visit. It's open year-round. It's located about 7.5 kilometers from the port, though, so a short taxi ride away, or the hop-on, hop-off bus. If you are heading out there, Africville was a historic black community on the northern edge of Halifax. It was founded by formerly enslaved people and black loyalists in the 19th century. Despite generations of resilience, Africville suffered decades of neglect, and it was controversially demolished in 1960-ish by the city. The residents were forcibly relocated. Today, the Africville Museum stands on the original site, housed in a replica of the community's church. And it tells the powerful story of a displaced people, the ongoing fight for justice, recognition, cultural memory. And the museum is just further than the Fairview Lawn Cemetery. So if you're heading out that way, you might want to combine that side of Halifax's story, something that lots of people aren't aware of at all. Back in town, the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia offers a thoughtful and surprising collection that highlights both regional identity and broader artistic voices. It's home to the largest collection of Nova Scotian and Atlantic Canadian art. It includes folk art, contemporary works, First Nations pieces. One of the best-known features is the gallery dedicated to Maud Lewis, including her fully restored and vividly painted tiny house. It's a great place to explore the province's creativity beyond its lighthouses and its lobster traps. Did somebody mention a lighthouse? Peggy's Cove is one of the most photographed spots in all of Canada, and for good reason. This tiny fishing village, just about an hour from Halifax, is home to the iconic red and white lighthouse that's perched dramatically on a wave-worn granite rock. The landscape's stunning here, but do take care because rogue waves here can be dangerous. The village itself has a few shops, cafes, seafood shacks. It's a really charming stop. It's not easily accessible by public transport, though. So most people tend to join a tour, or you end up taking a taxi there. A visit here offers you classic East Coast scenery with a side of sea salt air. A really lovely day trip. Let's stay in the city centre for our final two top highlights of Halifax. And the first up is the Halifax Public Gardens, a peaceful Victorian-era oasis right in the heart of the city. It's got ornate fountains, flower beds, winding paths. It's a perfect space for a quiet stroller, just a shady sit-down. What I love to do, I love to get some Timbits from Tim Hortons. They're on the main street. And then I go up with my Timbits in its little cardboard box, and I sit on a bench in the park, and I eat them while people watching. It's wonderful. The gardens are free to enter. They open seasonally from May through to November. They're fully wheelchair accessible as well. One of my favorite spots in Halifax, especially if we get a good weather day. And this one, the Halifax Citadel, a star-shaped fortress that has watched over this city since 1749. Perched on a hill, about a 30-minute walk if you're walking it from the port. It offers a fantastic panoramic view of the harbour. You can see the areas that were decimated by the Halifax explosion. And then you go inside, you find excellent exhibits on Canada's military history, including both world wars. What makes the visit extra memorable are the interpreters. They're dressed in full 19th century Scottish military uniforms, kilt, spar, and everything, the lot. They're incredibly knowledgeable. They're very happy to answer all of the questions you ask and some of the questions that you didn't ask. And the noonday gun still fires daily. So go around noon and you get to see the cannon go. The site is mostly accessible, and there are assistances available if you need it to get up to the top part of the site for the best views. All right, so I'm going to put them all on a map for you. Now, there are certain highlights that I would have otherwise included as well in Halifax, but I don't think they're going to be open this early. But just whilst we've got the map up, I'm going to point where they might be, just so if you're walking by, you know to keep an eye out. As you're walking along from 1 to 2, it's a really nice waterfront promenade. In the summer, they've got a food shack village. It's all these sheds and huts, all the different... Beaver tails is there, ice cream's there, fish and chips, loads of great food there. I think it's unlikely to be open just now. I think we're about half a month too early, but keep an eye out just in case, because it's fun to grab your lunch out there. On the walk, I didn't think it was worthy of a highlight in its own right, but it's a fun picture. They've got some drunken lampposts. You'll know exactly which ones I mean when you get to them, but they are the drunken lampposts. Nobody quite knows why. And then if you want to go shopping, because this is a fantastic port for shopping as well, you come out of the port, you could walk along the waterfront, but your quickest way is to go up here, which is past the Discovery Centre. So you've got the Discovery Centre on your right. You walk up the road, you've got the church and a graveyard. When you get there, you'll turn left. You go past the public library, and then you're in that main shopping street. Really great shopping port as well. And if you want to get any little gifts for your favourite team members, like chips and stuff, I know lots of you like to buy snacks and chips, right by the port, on the other side of the railway tracks, is a massive supermarket. That's where the crew will go. Big, big supermarket just there. So here we are. After centuries of war, expulsion, treaty signing, after all the cannonballs, the cod quotas, the cultural tug of war, what's left? Apparently a table. A very odd table, with gravy stains, crumbs, wine rings, and half a donaire wedged under someone's plate. But a table nonetheless. And everyone's still sitting at it. So maybe the French and the English never fully made peace. Maybe they just got hungry. And what's left after centuries of conflict isn't a clear winner. It's a table. Salt cod crossed oceans. Acadians returned with potato casseroles. St Pierre held the line with foie gras and bootleg Bordeaux. And somehow, through all of the bickering, all of the border changes, a kind of culinary peace treaty emerged, made of cheese curds, fried dough, and the shared agreement that everything tastes better with butter. Uncle Jacques is still muttering about the Quiet Revolution. Sandrine is pretending not to enjoy her second beaver tail. William's teaching the children how to gut a cod using only a spoon and sarcasm. Tyler's poo tails, well, they're all gone. Every last one of them. There's something kind of wonderful about that. Because if you ever needed proof that survival doesn't always look noble or clean or dignified, proof that we don't all need to agree to get along, just look at the menus in this part of Canada. It's strange. It's stubborn. It's hilarious in places. And it's still here, just like the people who made it. Whatever you end up tucking into for lunch over the next few days, whether it's a Canadian twist on a Greek classic, a culinary symbol of quiet revolution, or a potential instigator of gastric revolution, remember, you're not just eating lunch. You're tasting what happens when bad neighbors refuse to give up and eventually learn to pass the salt. Thank you.